Hey, you're listening to Big Blend Radio with Nancy Reed and Lisa Smith. We're the mother-daughter team and publishers of BigBlendMagazines.com. And our next guest, I'm excited about this, is Kent Evans. He's a spoken word artist. Well, he's also a written word artist. He's the author of the novel, A Crash Course on the Anatomy of Robots. And seriously, just go get this and sit down, pour yourself a really good drink, and get into it because it is mind-blowing. It's great. It's available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Nobles, but you can also go right to his website, kentevans.net. Kent, how are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing great. We're having quite a show today, and I have to tell you, I'm getting right in the heart of your book, A Crash Course on the Anatomy of Robots. And I mean it. It is a trip. Seriously.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
No, really, it's interesting. Even I know you do a lot of the travel. I want to talk to you about that because Nancy and I have done a ton of travel, and it's just something that I think really does kind of shift you in and out of different zones, right?
Right. Well, it sounds like you guys have done a bit of travel too. Are you talking about South Africa and such?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, you've got a connection with Mexico too, right?
Yes, it's actually it's my home base most of the year.
Where? Where in Mexico?
It's a city called Guanajuato. It's this. How can I best describe it? Something like the Ewok village mixed with Barcelona on acid. But it's basically a colonial village. So it's protected by the UN. So it basically you're not allowed to change the outside of anything. So it looks a lot like the Barrio Gothic in Barcelona or in certain parts of colonial Italy and Spain. But at the same time, it's in the middle of the desert highlands, so it's about 10,000 feet up, and it's about 5 hours from any major city. And the town itself has one of the biggest performing arts festivals on the continent, which is the Cervantino Arts Festival, which happens usually every October. And also we have a pretty big film festival, and on top of that we've got a university in town with probably about 50,000 students. So it makes it kind of a magical chill place. And it's a good spot for me to relax.
I know. I'm like, I want to go. Nancy and I lived in Mexico for a little while, and when we came back from South Africa, we came back to the States and went through culture shock. Still in it. And
I'm still in it myself.
Yeah, right. I don't think we ever leave it. Do you think culture shock comes from being aware or not being aware? Because now, wait a minute. If anyone reading your book, A Crash Course on the Anatomy of Robots, it's like, I'm aware, I'm not aware. So you're kind of canceling yourself out in that zone of like not aware.
Right. Exactly. The chosen apathy. I mean. For me, I think it's, culture shock for me always happens when I return to a place that I considered home. For example, I'm in New York City right now. And the thing is, if you go off to Asia or Africa or just travel anywhere in the world, you expect it to be different. And so in that sense, the culture shock you get when you land isn't so severe because you already have that in mind. You already have that preperception. But when you've been away from where you're from for a while and you come back and you expect it to be sort of this fairy tale idea of what home is in your head, and you come back and it's certainly not the case, then I think that's when true culture shock occurs. So, for example, for me, coming back to New York is confusing. Like, they changed everything. What's going on here?
But you said, it's that expectation, and I think that's the great lesson about travel. Whether or not you've been there or lived there, that's where it kind of always wakes you up to your senses so that you're not a robot. Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's the major theme. Well, I heard you guys talking about sort of like social networking earlier with Facebook and Twitter, and I don't even know what Lisa had mentioned, some kind of pin something or other.
Pinterest, yeah.
Pinterest, okay. Well, for example, like we are living currently in this era where all of us are theoretically more connected than ever. We're able to, through all these social mediums and the internet and connection on an international level, theoretically we should feel closer than we ever have. But at the same time, I think that there's this current of social isolation, which occurs in a lot of people now for that reason. So it's having the exact opposite effect. For example, Damien Wood, who's the protagonist in Crash Course, he's very much feels like he lives in this social uncanny valley. This, he feels robotic, like an automaton, and a lot of it has to do from this lifestyle of traveling mixed in with the feeling like he should be connecting, but somehow he's not. I think a lot of us are kind of feeling that way.
And what do you think is that catalyst? Because, the very, very beginning of the show today, we were talking about, Nancy and I are on a 5-year national tour of the states, and we're doing all the national parks to make sure that they stay open in our, as best we can, promote that. And, we go hiking, and that's our solitude. It's like church for us. That's our thing. But it's amazing to see people being able to run by wildlife. I mean,
and not see it.
And deer and it's every single time we see deer, a mom and a baby, and someone is either walking right by the deer. I have video. I can't even tell you how much footage I have of people walking by.
Well, I think we just kind of have started to take everything for granted, and in this very kind of fast food consumeristic way, whether it's nature or other people or relationships or all these types of things. We just, I think there's this expectation right now, especially with younger generations, that everyone kind of feels entitled to everything. And in that sense, it's like, oh, it's a deer. Like I've already seen 10,000 of those on some kind of photo app or something. And so, I think the minds, a lot of people are not slowing down to really appreciate all the things around them.
Actually, I don't think they saw it at all. This is what I'm seeing, and I just have to, not so people don't get upset. When we were in Africa, we saw the same thing, that people who came on African safari, which is incredibly expensive, who would come back to the hotel or the campfire at night and say, well, I didn't really see that much. And it was because they weren't really looking. So it's robotic enough to go through a whole day with the purpose of seeing something and not seeing anything because they forgot to look.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, they were expecting to be spoon-fed. They weren't expecting to have to take the time to really look and to really observe and to really take things in. They're expecting someone to, trot out a zebra and a lion right in front of them. So.
Right.
And that does happen where an animal decides to cross the road and the car has to stop, so therefore you have no alternative but to see.
Yeah.
Right.
But anything where you had to look to the side and look into the bush and see it for yourself didn't happen for a lot of people.
It's interesting because it doesn't happen, but I think you're right on that, Ken, as well, that when you're looking at, wait a minute, people can still see it, but they're like, yeah, we've seen this before. So it's almost like your brain is just triggering. It's like a computer. I'm going right to the robot side of things here.
Right.
It's like it's already going, ding, we've seen that, then shelved it, boom. And I want to take that analogy now. Look at what's, I know you do a lot of spoken word and, as a performance art. I remember when I think the poetry slams, didn't they started in Chicago pretty much. I had to bring this in, right? But poetry slams, Chicago, they had this whole thing. Whereas, let's go back to the beatnik days where people, were reading their poetry, but you've got the clicking of the fingers, you've got all of that, right? Where have we gone where now it has to become a performance? And I'm not knocking it. I think it's all good.
Right.
But do you think we had to go poetry slam just to keep people's attention to get them to listen? Because you have to have that time limit. You have to do it now,
Right. I mean, I would say yes and no. I would say in a very real sense, poetry has been struggling. It's no one really wants to buy it. No one wants to really read it. Hell, I don't even feel like writing it. But it's so in that sense, something that I think spoken word has become something that's more accessible to a lot of people, with all the good and bad that comes with it. I talk about in the book how the way that slams work, you're given 6 minutes to do a piece, and really all you need is 3 of them that you just rehearse over and over again to try to make a mark and get on a slam team and compete, which is why I kind of got out of the slam scene. Me, I still wanted to practice spoken word because there's something immediate in taking a piece, narrating it directly to an audience, having them feed off of you and you feed off of them, and have that energy go back and forth. That I feel is, it's something that's hard to replicate in another medium other than performance.
And it is that moment of now, so people's brains, hearts, minds, it's that openness, where you experience it now. It's like basically wine, okay? And I want to talk to you about Thai whiskey, too.
Okay.
But the green tea after the Thai whiskey, I've had that experience, except for it wasn't Thai whiskey.
It's not even whiskey. It's not even whiskey. They call it, I'm trying to think. The Samsung is the brand, or if you could call it a brand, that I can think of right now. It's kind of got, the crooked label stuck on there, and it's like, I think it contains something like 16 ingredients that are illegal in spirits everywhere else on the planet. But it's like the idea is like they'll put it's whiskey or it's rum, but it's really neither. It's some weird concoction of whatever. It's cheap.
And don't drink green tea the next morning. All I know is
it's Kickapoo Joy Juice.
Yeah, Kickapoo Joy Juice. But that performance side of it. Nancy and I both have been music, and I write a lot of music and songs and perform and all of that. But there's that moment where you can never duplicate it. I understand we've got video and film, and we've had these arguments before on the show. But the reality is, you'll never have that exact spark that happened when you connected during a performance. Once it happens, it happens. That's why I think venues that allow performing arts still instead of just, and I'm not knocking karaoke, but I kind of am. But there has to have that connection. It's where art and the person on the other side of the art connect.
Yeah.
It's almost sexual in a way.
Yeah, it's definitely sensual, and and for that I love it. That being said, if you what we were wondering before about the negative side of it, is that it does kind of encourage. I think it's a mutual negative thing sometimes, which is why I got out of slams, in that it encourages both the audience and the artist to kind of dumb it down a little. Like someone comes out and they read a piece, and you know what they're going to read because you can tell by what they look like. Like for example, like when I did.
I know that's why we go.
No, exactly, and the audience
they've read
expects
the same thing
the
10 times in the whole area, from slam to slam to slam.
Yeah.
Right. Which is why. Which is kind of why I went my own way with it, because I felt like, I love the medium. I'm a musician, so I love composing music. I love performing music. I love recording music, and I'm a writer. So spoken word was sort of the natural bridge between those two loves for me. And I love putting together shows and recording stuff. I recorded a companion album to Crash Course, actually, which... Yeah,
we're going to play some of that.
Excellent. But... I love that part of it. But yeah, like slams, I got, I'm a long-haired Asian guy, so everyone expects me to do some sort of Amy Tan, Maxine Punk Kingston thing, which I don't. It's actually funny. There is a piece called Too Many Nights, which is both one of the tracks on the album and is within the book. But it was a piece that I actually wrote, sort of as a joke, like because this place I was performing at, which is one of the most famous cafes to perform at, New Rican's in New York. I just got tired of everyone doing pieces about, like someone walks up and you're like, oh, okay, it's a pregnant black lesbian. Obviously, she's going to do poetry completely surrounding that. Solely that facet of her, and they're going to expect that. And for me, I was like, I guess I'm going to do a piece about being Chinese and Asian and all this kind of stuff. And the whole piece was, kind of this tongue-in-cheek thing that I just did because I was aggravated. And of course, it won the slam that night, which I found completely ironic.
I just have to tell you, at one stage of our magazine, we hosted some poetry slams.
Oh, my God.
So you know whereof you speak. And in one particular town, which I will not name, we hosted a poetry slam, and we got so frustrated with what was happening that sitting at the bar, we quickly, Lisa, I don't even think you wrote it. You just went up and performed The Elephant. And
this
I wrote a kind of a risque little stop-it-you'll-go blind piece. And at the end of the poetry slam, we stood up and did our version of poetry, and we won our own poetry slam, which was against the rules.
And then we left and drove to Colorado.
And then we left because we went, screw this.
San Diego to Colorado.
We really seriously went, screw this, because from a couple hours away, a whole team of great poets drove up the hill to help the mountain people with their poetry, and they did the same thing they'd done for years and we'd seen before, and it was so boring, and they thought they would put this little town to shame, and we just looked at each other and went, this is not what it's about, and that was the end of our...
It's not what it should be about, but it's kind of what it's become.
Yeah, that's when we just said, that's it, we're on a road trip.
After it, in the lobby of this place, and everybody's now drinking heavily, there was like a group therapy session, and Lisa and I just went, oh, no, let's go to Colorado. Why not?
And we were not that polite either.
Yeah, we
just told everybody what we thought, and we left, and we went on a road trip.
And there was somebody who showed up dressed in kilts.
Yeah.
Because apparently it helped his poetry, but not a lot.
I'll never forget it. He got up on top of a table. He was upset he was late and basically cried, and then he gets up there and goes, wet kisses, and that was it. We had lost it. Sorry, we're horrible, but the reality is, poetry. I think is one of the most beautiful forms of work. I mean, it's art. It's beautiful, but it can be cruel. What I like about your book, what I love about it, and I even love the name Damien, and I like Damien Wood especially because you walk between the good and the bad, the devil, the God, the good, you're walking in between everything where it does have that cancel out, but then you can't just lie in that cancel out side. And I think of the wood as a piece of driftwood, personally. This sounds weird, but it's just the way I think.
Right.
The name Damien, to me, I'm like, dude, you're messing with the good and the evil here.
Just like the Omen.
Yeah, exactly. It was the first thing, I started reading it. I was just like, okay, this is great. And I think that this is something I really want a lot of people to read it because I think it will waken people a little bit. And I think everybody goes through this because it's also a book about also growing up a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's definitely in a sense definitely a coming of age novel. I would just definitely say that's accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you choose the name Damien?
Yeah,
and I think when somebody names their child Damien, they're already saying, "Oh my God, what did I do?"
But then wood is the word wood. Wood is neutral. See?
I didn't actually think of the Omen reference.
Really?
No, actually, what it was it's kind of a it's part of the sort of meta joke of the book that the book keeps the book occasionally. The Damien who's writing the book will break character and start talking directly with the reader and that sort of thing. And Damien is kind of referencing sometimes things in my life, and I think at least once in the book I step in directly and say some things. But it's one of those meta to infinity kind of jokes that Damien Wood was actually a pseudonym of mine when I wrote sci-fi and horror when I was a teenager. So.
Well, in the end, I like it because he's like, this is what he's thinking. We all have that head voice,
Right.
And I love that. And he's just basically F you to everybody.
Makes him a really good Damien.
So can you talk about Alex, a character that comes up in the book?
Alex, yeah, absolutely.
Alex is a trip.
Yeah, which part specifically?
I want to talk about the dress-up time.
The strip club, the stripping experience. Is that what yeah. No, that's well. There's a section in the book, and Damien is with his very good friend Alex, who's a Dutch Mexican fellow who lives in the same town that he spends time in Mexico. And in this town, they have an exchange student program where every semester about 50 blonde 20-year-old Norwegian girls show up in the town, and it changes the whole dynamic of the city. And that like suddenly if you're Norwegian, you drink for free. If you speak some Norwegian, you get into any club. And Damien and Alex,
works in Kenya too.
What's that?
It works in Kenya too.
Yes, it does.
Kenya, yeah. Imagine
I love your book.
Places.
I really do. I love your book. I'm sorry. Go ahead. It's so connected with a lot of things for us.
but anyhow, Damien and Alex are sitting in a bar in one night, and Alex says, "Hey, I want to ask you a favor." And Damien's like, "Sure." And he's like, "Well, I think we should have a drink first." And that turns into, basically an entire bottle of mezcal. And Damien is like, "Okay, something's up. You wouldn't be trying to get me drunk if it wasn't." And he was like, "Look, this one Norwegian girl has decided that for her birthday, her 21st birthday, I believe, she wants a striptease. So the thing is, she doesn't just want anyone. She specifically wants someone." And Damien's like, "Oh, really? That's interesting." And Alex is like, "Well, yeah." And then they actually asked for you. And Damien's like, "Oh, that's hilarious." And then he's like, "Well," and I said that you said yes. So Damien decides that the only way that he's going to allow this to happen is that he just basically says to Alex, "I'm not going to do it if you don't do it." And he's counting on the fact that Alex will be too embarrassed to actually go through with it. But, come 2 days later, basically Alex drinks up a whole bunch of liquid courage, puts together some outfits for them where basically Alex is dressed up kind of like a homosexual cowboy. And,
I know there was a cowboy in the Indian part. My mind went village people all the way.
Right. And Damien is in some very, very, very bad Indian costume. And then, of course, the two of them go to the party. They're completely smashed. They're falling over each other, trying to put on these costumes. And then they come in and they're dancing in front of the girl. And Damien is finally committed to the fact that, like, okay, I've got to strip in front of this 19-year-old Norwegian girl with a bunch of people screaming and chanting in Scandinavian around them. And just as he starts to dance in front of her, he feels a hand on his shoulder just hurl him out of the way, and it's Alex. And so Alex gets in there and just basically goes full Monty, and then further down the line, Damien wins.
It's hysterical. I have to say, what's funny, when we lived in Mexico, we lived south of San Diego, south of Ensenada and La Bufadora area, and in Ensenada there was this strip club, and it was really. It was called the Mariposas, but that was what Tico, one bartender we know.
No, that's what they called it. It was
Mariposas.
called Icarus.
Icarus, yeah. And he used to sit there and he'd go, "Come on, drink tequila," and he'd just slam his hand and do all this crazy stuff. Tico was cool, and then he drove his car off the cliff.
Yeah.
But when he's funny, I was sober. But he would sit there and go, "Okay, now this is how they do it, man." He was like, "This is Mariposas," and they would tape it this way and that way. This is a great conversation. But he was always like, come on, I'm going to take you there. You got to go. But I know about driving from Ensenada to La Bufadora at night is not always the fun thing because there's dogs and potholes everywhere. But really, your book is great, and everybody should take a look what goes on with Damien, because he does go through a lot of transformation. Talk about Mariposa, but it's true, a lot of transformation,
It's the butterfly people.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's I'm glad, like I said, I'm glad that you guys connected with it on that level.
Yeah, no, and I think, so travel-wise, where's a place you haven't been that you want to go?
I would really like to. I'd really like to travel through India, because I've been all over Southeast Asia, but I never made it India, and it's actually a reoccurring thing in my life. I've tried to get there, I think, 3 times, and it's something's always failed. I got very close last summer when I was in Barcelona, and then it turned out I needed a visa, which I should have known, and it turned out that the embassy in Spain said, well, if you fly back to New York, you can get the visa within a day, or you can try to get it here, and it'll come in a month. And I'd already bought a flight for 3 days from then, and I didn't feel like flying back to New York, and hence I didn't make it that time. But yeah, India is somewhere I'd really like to go, and then I'd like to travel more through South America. Like I haven't,
nice.
I'd like to get. I'd really like to get down to say Patagonia or kind of one of those ends of the earth type places. And really, there's just a lot of places I would like to see before they're gone. You know?
Yeah, and when you travel, everyone travels a different way. And I'd love to put you on a show with Global Henry, don't you think, Nancy? You and Henry, and I was reading your book, I'm like going, oh my God, I have to connect you both. He's traveled 120 countries and did it sleeping on streets, and, he met Mother Teresa in India. And
wow.
Just a really cool, he comes on our shows all the time, and I'd love to have you both on the show because he writes, too.
We call him Basic Boy.
Yeah, we call him Basic Boy, right? But he's an airline captain for Virgin Air, but anyway, during his day life, But it's interesting because he writes he bases his stories, but he puts them into fiction because he's always talking about how it shouldn't be about him. It's really about the stories, the people. Do you feel the same way? Because this is kind of slanted on a little bit of your life, right? So you've got it in fiction.
I mean, I agree with that to an extent. I mean, the Crash Course is definitely inspired by a lot of the events of my own life. I'm not Damien, but Damien is probably a darker, more immature part of me, and definitely a lot of the experiences that he has are molded on actual experiences that I've had.
I think that when somebody makes a movie or paints a picture or writes a story, no matter what, even if they say it has nothing to do with them, there's a part that comes out that is definitely to do with them.
I would say already. If it's not, then you're writing the next Transformers movie. If it's not.
Well, then maybe you're really not writing. Maybe you're doing Bob Dylan's "Wussies and Pussies" places.
Right, exactly.
Oh, can you tell him your dream?
Oh no, I love Bob Dylan,
He'll love it.
And I'm totally on Bob Dylan's side. In a song, when you sing a quote, right? And people recognize it as a quote, and then he gets accused of plagiarism. So now, from now on, in my dream, he's going to sing quote unquote as he sings this.
Is this a reoccurring dream?
Well, it was just one, and then he kept popping up like when everybody made a speech. He would say wussy or pussy. And I was just, he was looking at the presidential debates about to happen, and one was a wussy and one was a pussy. And it was really kind of funny. And at the end, when every time he tried to sing, he just kept singing, "What if God were one of us?"
Oh, my God.
I know. See, that's one of those dreams I don't need to have again, but it was pretty funny.
Well, that's my mother for you.
Hey, I'm a 60s child. What can I say?
I just thought you'd appreciate that. But, Ken, the other thing I wanted to ask you before you go, because we are going to play a track, because you have this whole accompanying album, and it's on iTunes that people can get it, right?
Yeah, they can get it on iTunes, CD Baby, pretty much anything that you can think of. You can buy the album electronically, and if you're one of the 3 people on Earth left that actually wants a physical album, you can just go to Amazon and order a CD.
Right on. Now, before you go, though, which came first, travel or writing? Because I know you've got another book out that, you've won 1 million awards and done so much in writing and words and just all the way around with words. But which came first, travel or writing?
No one's ever asked me that, actually. Well, I started writing at a really early age, but and I started taking it seriously when I was a teenager. And so I would say about the same time was was the defining trip for me that kind of made me want to be a traveler. When I was 15 years old, and this is crazy to me now, but I was selected to head a Episcopal youth group to the Caribbean for a conference on autonomy for the church. And I went to the Dominican Republic for a couple months, and it changed my entire view of the world as far as just coming from the Northeast in New England and going to somewhere that was just so different culturally and geographically, really colored everything. But at that time, I was already writing, and actually, I didn't actually write that much that trip, but I think they're just two separate loves that have just developed throughout my life, I would say. And
do you think that travel plays a big role in your writing? I mean, obviously in this book it does, but do you think that it really, I mean, where if you didn't travel, where do you think your writing would be?
Well, I think I've written. I've dabbled in tons of genres. Honestly, if it was possible, I would just write poetry. But of course, that's completely impossible. So, and my poetry, I cover any subject and everything and anything.
It's a difficult genre. It really is.
It's a really difficult one. So, I would say, I think if I didn't write about traveling, I've always written about the things that interest me and that I know. So whether I was physically traveling or just traveling in my mind and in my life, I think I would still write about those things.
Maybe you could just tweet one stanza at a time, as long as it's less than 149 characters. You could like a poem. You could just do it over a course of a few days.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Good luck on that.
Yeah. I think that's actually Salman Rushdie's method. Is he writes he writes one sentence at a time. He's happy if he's got one sentence done properly a day, which strikes me as insanely lazy.
Don't even start me.
You would think poetry would be, really popular in this day and age since everybody's in such a hurry.
Yeah, exactly. No one has the patience for it, right? So, which is funny because it's easy.
That's why you have to go to songwriting.
Right, exactly.
It all started with poetry for me. Yeah, and then I had to put it in music.
Do a song.
Yeah. I love my music, though. It's a big deal. So, and we're going to play some. So,
I'm anxious to hear this.
Do you have a specific track we can play? Because I have Beginning of the End, which is what I was going to play. We have I Told Alex and Too Many Nights. Which one would you prefer us to play?
Okay. I would say, let's see. Too Many Nights is a great one, but it's got a couple of curse words in there. I'm not sure if that's an issue.
Oh, you can go for it. We don't care.
We don't care. We've already done Wussy and Pussy.
No.
It's all right. Well, then I would say Too Many Nights because that, especially since we were talking about spoken word and about sort of just pieces that focus on things like sex and gender and race, ethnicity, and whatever the person happens to look like. This is a piece that's sort of it actually is. It's actually the words kind of are the epitome of what Damien doesn't like about the spoken word scene, but at the same time,
I think Damien's a cool character, and I do like his name, Damien Wood. That's good. And everybody, again, a crash course on the anatomy of robots. Get it? And it, what I like, you make people think, but it's still really fun, to read. And that, I think when you can do that, you've got something really cool going on. So everybody, again, you can get the album online on Amazon.com, CD Baby, but also the book, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles. But go right to KentEvans.net. Here it is, Too Many Nights. And thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, guys. You guys have been great.
You too. All right, here it is. Too Many Nights.
guess I should do a piece about being Chinese and you being white, or a woman, or an angry black man. Because you all look the same to me. I guess I'm the ultimate racist and sexist in the world. The thing is, whether you got melanin or estrogen or a belt of sin in your culture's past, you still all look the same to me. am everything and nothing, which is what I see in you. You can't touch me because you can't see me, as I finally become clear. Yeah, the last thing I am is what you expect me to be. Because I am everything and nothing, which is what I see in you. You can't touch me, and you can't see me. Because I finally become clear.
All right, that was Too Many Nights off of the album that goes with the book, A Crash Course on the Anatomy of Robots, and it's by Kent Evans. A great read and an interesting album as well. Everybody check it out. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, all that great stuff, but you can go to kentevans.net. I want to thank